There is a conversation happening in millions of households right now. Someone says they need to start investing. Someone else mentions a colleague who made money on something they heard about at work. Everyone around the table has an opinion. Very few have a clear framework. And underneath all of it, underneath the disagreements and the half-understood advice, there is a question that almost nobody asks cleanly. What exactly is an asset? Not the dictionary definition. The real, working, practically useful answer to what distinguishes the things that make people wealthy from the things that merely make people feel wealthy in the short term. Because here is what nobody in that conversation is saying, and what this video is going to spend the next 15 minutes saying as clearly as it can possibly be said. The difference between people who build genuine wealth and people who spend their lives reaching for it is almost never income. It is almost always what they own. And understanding what to own specifically, precisely, with the kind of clarity that actually changes financial behavior is the question that every previous video on this channel has been building toward. This video is the answer. Let's start with the definition. Most people have never heard stated this precisely. An asset is anything that puts money into your pocket without requiring your continued presence to do so. That is the whole definition. Not complicated, not technical, but precise enough that it immediately clarifies something most people spend years being confused about. Think about what passes through your financial life and ask which side of that definition it sits on. Your salary requires your presence every single day, not an asset. Your car costs you money every month, not an asset, but a business you own. A piece of that operates whether you show up or not. That is an asset. Shares in a company paying dividends into your account quarterly, that is an asset. A property generating rental income while a tenant pays the mortgage, that is an asset. All of those things put money into your pocket without requiring your continuous presence. That single distinction, understood clearly and acted on consistently, separates the people who become financially free from the people who spend their entire working lives one paycheck away from pressure. Now here's the psychological truth that behavioral economics has spent decades documenting, and it explains why most people never build assets despite knowing they should. Human beings are wired to prefer immediate rewards over delayed ones. The things that produce the greatest long-term financial return, productive assets, compounding equity, ownership that appreciates quietly across decades, produce almost no immediate emotional reward at all. There is no neurochemical response when you make a contribution to an index fund, no social validation when you reinvest a dividend. But the things that produce the greatest immediate emotional satisfaction, the upgrade, the luxury purchase, the lifestyle expansion produce powerful, immediate responses. They generate social approval. They deliver exactly what the brain's reward system was designed to recognize. This is the asymmetry at the heart of every financial decision most people make. Liabilities are purchased with emotion. Assets are purchased with discipline. And in a competition between emotion and discipline, conducted moment to moment across an entire financial life, emotion has a structural advantage that only a clear intellectual framework can reliably overcome. That framework is what this video is building. One asset at a time. The first asset most people never think of as an asset at all. Think about what a genuinely rare skill actually does for the person who holds it. In year one, it generates a modest premium. The person is slightly more valuable than peers, and compensation reflects that modestly. In year 5, that same skill deepened through application, refined through experience, begins generating significantly greater returns. The person is not just more valuable, they are differently valuable. In year 15, the skill has compounded in ways impossible to predict from year 1. It has generated a professional reputation, relationships that open closed doors, insights that could not have arrived without the preceding years of accumulated depth. This is compounding, not of capital, of capability. Naval Ravikant calls this specific knowledge understanding so genuinely developed that it cannot be easily replicated or commoditized. The person who builds this has built something that produces increasing returns across time with durability that most financial assets cannot match. The mistake most people make is treating skill development as preparation for earning rather than as an asset in its own right. It is both. But the second framing is far more powerful. Now here is something worth pausing on before we go further. You've probably heard this argument before. Maybe at a gathering, maybe online, maybe between people who both think they are right. Someone says, real estate is the only real investment. You can see it, touch it, borrow against it. Someone across the room replies, stocks have outperformed real estate in almost every meaningful historical study. The liquidity alone makes them superior. A third person says, you're both missing the point. Starting a business is the only way to build real wealth. Who is actually right? The truth is, they are all right, and they are all missing the same point. Real estate, stocks, and business ownership are not competing answers to the question of how to build wealth. They are different vehicles traveling toward the same destination. Each one represents ownership of something productive. Each one generates value that does not require the owner's continuous labor. Each one converts capital into a claim on future value that compounds across time. The argument about which is best is like arguing whether to take a train, a plane, or a car to a destination several hundred miles away. The answer depends entirely on where you are starting, what resources you have, and what the terrain looks like. The common thread is not the vehicle. It is the direction of travel, toward ownership, away from pure consumption. Suppose Marcus and Daniel each receive $10,000. Same amount, same moment, same choices available. Marcus thinks about what $10,000 could do right now, the car that needs replacing, the holiday that keeps getting postponed. The $10,000 in Marcus's hands is a solution to present problems. He is not wrong that those things matter, but the $10,000 once spent is gone. It produces no future value beyond the direct experience of the thing purchased. Daniel thinks about what $10,000 could become. He splits it. $5,000 into a broad market index fund, $3,000 into a single business he has studied carefully, $2,000 held in reserve for an opportunity he does not yet know will arrive. 5 years pass. The visible difference between them is negligible. Marcus's life looks better on the surface. 10 years. Daniel's portfolio has grown meaningfully. The business stake has appreciated. The reserve found its opportunity. 15 years. Daniel's assets are now generating their own income dividends, appreciation, compounding value, multiplying across the years without requiring Daniel to do anything. Marcus spent $10,000. Daniel planted $10,000. Same seed money, different philosophy, a completely different relationship with the future. Now here's the mistake almost everyone makes when they first start thinking seriously about assets. They think about assets as things to buy, the purchase, the transaction, the moment when capital moves from one place to another. But this frame misses something that the people who build the most significant wealth understand clearly. Assets are not things you buy. Assets are things you build a relationship with across time. The index fund that compounds quietly for 25 years without intervention is not valuable because of the moment you purchased it. It is valuable because of the 25 years you did not interfere with it. The rental property generating 15 years of consistent cash flow is not valuable because of the day you signed the contract. It is valuable because of the 15 years of patient holding that followed. William Bernstein makes this point in a way worth carrying permanently. He argues that the greatest enemy of a good investment plan is not a bad market. It is a good investor who refuses to stay in their seat. The purchase is the beginning. The relationship is the wealth. There is a category of asset building genuine wealth for ordinary people right now, in ways that would have been almost impossible 20 years ago, that most financial conversations still treat as secondary. Intellectual and digital assets. A book written once can be sold indefinitely. A course built once can be completed by thousands of students across years without the creator reteaching it. A piece of software written once can be licensed repeatedly. A brand built through consistent output can generate income long after any individual piece of content was created. These are assets. By the precise definition we established at the beginning of this video, they put money into your pocket without requiring your continuous presence. The barrier to creating them has fallen dramatically. The tools available to ordinary people for building content, software, educational material, and digital products have become extraordinarily accessible. But the romantic version, the course that generates passive income overnight, the content that immediately attracts millions, is not the reality for most people who succeed at it. The reality, as with almost everything in wealth creation, is less dramatic and more patient. It requires specific knowledge, sustained effort, and the willingness to build something valuable before you know whether anyone will pay for it. It requires something rarer than capital. Time directed deliberately toward something that compounds. The elder came into this conversation late, as he tends to. He had been listening for a while before he said anything, and when he finally spoke, he did not mention any specific asset. He asked a question. He said, "Of everything we have discussed, what is the common thread?" Think about that before I tell you his answer, because the answer is important enough that arriving at it yourself will make it stick in a way that simply stating it cannot. The common thread, the thing connecting every productive asset, regardless of category, is that it separates your financial return from your continuous personal effort. A business generates profit whether the owner sleeps or works. A stock holding generates dividends whether the investor is watching or not. A rental property generates income whether the landlord is present or traveling. A piece of intellectual property generates royalties whether the creator is producing or resting. He said, "People spend their lives trying to earn more. The wealthiest people spend their lives trying to own more." And the reason owning more matters is that ownership eventually separates your financial life from your physical presence in a way that earning never can. That is the sentence this entire video has been building toward. Ownership separates your financial life from your physical presence. And when that separation is achieved, when your assets generate more than your expenses, when your financial life continues functioning, regardless of whether you show up tomorrow, you have arrived at the only destination that genuinely matters. Not rich, not impressive, not well compensated. Free. So where does this leave you practically? With one question and one framework. The question is, what am I building? Not what am I earning? What am I building? What productive ownership is accumulating in my financial life right now that will continue generating value after the effort that created it has been completed? The framework is the one from the very beginning. An asset puts money into your pocket without requiring your continuous presence to do so. Evaluate everything in your financial life against that definition. Your salary is the raw material. Your lifestyle is the consumption. And the gap between them, protected, directed, consistently deployed into productive ownership, is where financial freedom is quietly constructed. You do not need to buy all assets simultaneously. You do not need to start with a large amount. You need to understand what direction you are traveling in, and then take one step, and then another. Wealth is rarely created by working harder. It is created by owning things that continue working after you stop. That distinction between effort that ends and ownership that continues is the entire difference between the financial life that depends on your performance and the financial life that eventually supports your freedom. The assets that make ordinary people wealthy are not extraordinary. They are ordinary assets held with extraordinary patience, own deliberately, build patiently, compound consistently. Because the question was never, how much can I earn? The question was always, what am I building? And if you want to understand how the world's greatest investors and business builders think about protecting, growing, and compounding the assets they own across decades, watch the next video now. Subscribe to the Equity Mind for deeper insights into wealth creation, investing, ownership, and financial intelligence. Because the question was never how much can I earn? The question was always, what am I building? Think long, build deliberately,